Hey guys, I just want to let you know, starting February 19th, I'll be streaming on Twitch. You can find me live every Wednesday and Saturday from 6 to 9 p.m. Central Time at Video Game Botanist. I'll also be doing a special stream on Friday, February 28th for Monster Hunter Wilds. Hope to see you there! You requested it, and I heard you. We're going to be diving into the beauty of planet 4546b. Today is going to be all about relaxing in a tropical ocean paradise.
A few moments later.
Man, it sure is peaceful over here. Wait, what is that? What is that? Oh god, no! No, 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 no! Subnautica is an amazing game that was released in 2018. You play as this guy, Riley Robinson, a non-essential systems maintenance chief. So, basically a janitor supervisor. When the ship he's on, the Aurora, crashes on a mysterious planet, he barely survives. In order to escape, he must face untold dangers. This video will of course contain spoilers. If you haven't played it yet, I cannot recommend it enough. If you have thalassophobia like I do, then good luck! This game is absolutely terrifying the first time you play it. Just like the real ocean, you're part of the food chain now, and there's no telling what's out there. However, I believe it's definitely worth it. This game has so much beauty to it. Once again, just like the real ocean. If you enjoy survival games, then this is a good choice, especially if you like great storytelling. One thing that is all over this ocean is plant life. That's what we're going to be talking about today. What are the species on this planet? What are they like? And how do they compare to our own planet? Let's get started with some plants. This is an acid mushroom. Okay, it isn't a plant either, but it's listed under Flora, so we will be covering it. Though it really should be listed under fungi. Just like the name suggests, it's full of an acidic substance. When the mushroom is cut or damaged in some way, it bursts open, releasing the acid and potentially harming Riley. They can even cause nearby mushrooms to burst in a horrific chain reaction. This is also true for its deep-sea cousin, the deep shroom. This mushroom lives below 200 meters, so it's hard to reach without some sort of vehicle. In ocean environments, most fungi are microfungi, parasites, or swimming zoospores, spores that have a flagellum to move. There are species of basidiomycetes, or the kind of fungus that makes true mushrooms, that were discovered in aquatic environments, and in the ocean specifically. They're named Candoliomyces bruneo-vagabundus and Candoliomyces alba-vagabundus. We didn't discover them until 2023, but now we know they're found in Chinese mangrove forests. Blue palms are a decorative plant in the game. The PDA doesn't tell us much about it, other than it lives in shallow waters. We also know that it has those fronds to capture the most sunlight before it can reach the plants below. This is a common adaptation we see in forests as well. Forests can be divided up into layers. The forest floor is on the very bottom, the understory is above that, the canopy above that, and finally the emergent layer. This is the layer that the blue palm is trying to occupy, just on a much smaller scale. In the caves of planet 4546b, there's a dangerous fish called a crashfish. It has a symbiotic relationship with a sulfur plant. When a threat gets too close to the fish, the plant opens up like a flower. The fish then leaves at top speed and explodes next to Riley or his vehicle. These things hurt, and I've lost many Rileys to them. But the sulfur plant is pretty cool. It stores sulfur inside of its petals where the fish hides. And it would make sense for it to do it too, as it's an essential element for function. I believe that the symbiotic relationship between the plant and the fish means the fish brings the sulfur back to the plant. It must be very prevalent on this planet to be found in its raw state. This shouldn't be too surprising though, as it's the 10th most common element in the universe. Plants use sulfur constantly. It's needed to do pretty much anything. Sulfur helps the plant photosynthesize, it helps it produce chlorophyll, it helps the cells function, and many other things. It's one of 14 essential macronutrients needed for the plant to live. This is your reminder to eat plenty of healthy fruits and veggies so you can have your macronutrients as well. Veined nettle is often seen in shallow waters where it's being eaten by local fauna. It has seeds that grow on the base and stem. This is known on Earth as cauliflory. It's when reproductive organs of the plant can develop on main stems, and not just the new growth. It's not super common in temperate climates, but it's seen often in tropical ones. There's one tree that grows where I live called Cercis canadensis, the eastern redbud tree. It's one of my favorite trees, mostly because its flowers make amazing jelly. Creep vines are everywhere in this game. They're fairly common in coastal waters on Earth as well. They look to be a species of kelp, which is actually algae, not a true plant. It's something called a stromatopile, which is normally a single-celled organism, but can grow together as one multi-celled organism. This also explains one of my biggest problems, bioluminescence. Plants don't have this, but algae can. This explains the glowing of the seed pods. But many of the plants in this game glow. Well, I'm proposing that on this planet, the plants have a symbiotic relationship with the bacteria. That and the game designers thought it would be pretty. And they were right. This bacterial relationship is common on Earth for animals to have, but on this alien world, what if they were able to do the same for plants? That would explain much of the glowing flora and fauna we see throughout the game. We actually know for a fact that this is what's going on through the PDA logs of the sea crown. The plant itself is a bladder-like organism. It has a symbiotic relationship with the bacteria species that live inside of it. This gives it a glowing appearance. If it's possible for this plant, it's definitely possible for others. This red grassy field looks incredible, mostly because we don't get to see red plants. The ones I'm specifically going to be talking about are rhodophytes, or red algae. This is a diverse group that have special pigments for photosynthesis called phycobilin, which is red, and chlorophyll A. These phycobilins allow them to photosynthesize using more of the wavelength spectrum than they would be able to with just chlorophyll, thus allowing them to survive at deeper depths. While algae is not technically a plant, they do appear similar enough that they often get mistaken for them. We see these plants have actually developed phycobilins on this planet, which leads me to believe that there's less intense sunlight, forcing the plants to overcompensate. This explains why many of the plants have purple or red colorations, like those seen in the cave bush, furled papyrus, redwort, regress shell, and many others. A plant you really have to avoid is the tiger plant. This strange-looking guy is able to shoot spikes at anything that comes close to it by sensing fluctuations in the water around it. This has an added bonus besides protecting it too. When a creature dies by the plant, the decomposition adds nutrients to the soil. We have plenty of spiky plants on Earth. After all, every rose has its thorns. But what about that movement? Well, it could be triggered by the water moving against sensitive hair-like structures. When the hair structures are moved just right, then the plant will fire off spikes. We see similar movement activation in Dionea muscipula, the Venus flytrap. When the 3 trigger hairs are touched, then the trap closes. Jelly shrooms are found in, well, the jelly shroom cave. It looks like a jellyfish that is sitting on top of a fungus, so the name is pretty fitting. They have a symbiotic relationship to crab snakes, which are terrifying. When the crab snake brings a meal back, the mushroom is able to decompose the leftovers, giving it the nutrients it needs to sustain itself. Many plants share a relationship with the reefbacks. They can be found growing on the adults. Most likely their spores or seeds sprouted on top of them. All sorts of flora can be found though, including acid mushrooms, blood grass, furled papyrus, regress shells, rough cradles, spotted reeds, tiger plants, veined nettles, violet bows, and writhing weeds. Bulb bushes are a super weird one to me. It's a large purple sphere with tendrils coming off of it that anchor it to the rocks beneath. According to the PDA, when part of the plant is uprooted, it will form a new plant somewhere else. This is pretty common on Earth too. Probably the most prolific spreader by cuttings is Epipremnum aureum, the golden pothos. It was first discovered on the island of Moorea in French Polynesia. It spreads fast though, and has become an invasive species in jungles pretty much all around the world. One node cutting can set off an explosion of growth, making it troublesome to deal with. If you have houseplants, please keep them as houseplants. There's an adaptation of explosiveness that's found in the anchor pods. The PDA tells us that the swollen gas-filled membrane is full of spores, which it will release after reaching a certain height. They're specifically said to burst. Well, there's a tree we have called Huricrepitans, known as the sandbox tree. This guy literally explodes. I'm not even kidding. The fruits of this tree will explode in order to spread the seeds, which can travel 160 miles per hour, or 250 kilometers an hour, and as far as 150 feet, or 45 meters. Spotted dockleaf is a plant that can neutralize poisons and acids. Well, in my Resident Evil Herbs video, I talk about plants and how they can heal us. I mentioned methylene blue, which doesn't actually come from nature, but it is used to cure poisonings. It's just fun to see antidote plants that are blue in games. Eye stalks are found in caves. It has strange glowing eyes, which appear to be photosensitive according to the PDA. If it is sensing light, then I think we have another plant that uses phycobilins to photosynthesize. This explains the purple and red colorations. Bulbo trees are found on the few islands that are scattered around this area of 4546b. They have a sap that's toxic to insects, yet can be consumed by humans. Have you ever heard the old wives' tale of putting mint on your windows to keep spiders out? Well, this is actually true. There was a study where 3 scientists, named here, put lemon oil, peppermint oil, and chestnut fruits in different containers. They put different invasive spiders in each container. They were then tested to see which oil deterred them the most. Peppermint oil worked the best, followed by chestnut fruits, and lemon oil didn't work at all. So there are some things that are delicious to us that cannot be tolerated by insects. Chinese potatoes are not native to this planet, but are instead grown throughout the Chinese territories. The Degassi sank into the ocean about 10 years before the Aurora did. There were multiple survivors though, Paul, Bart, and Marguerite. They were the ones who introduced the potatoes to the planet, as some seeds were found on the Degassi while they were salvaging. They managed to grow it successfully. This goes to show the hardiness of this plant that is able to survive in multiple atmospheres. Fern palms may or may not be native to this planet. The PDA doesn't even know. It mentions DNA transfusions. On Earth, we have a naturally occurring phenomenon called horizontal gene transfer. It's a fairly common practice among organisms. Plants can share genes with each other. For example, the hornwort shares genes with ferns 180 million years ago that allowed them to survive in darker environments. Plants can even share genes with animals. In a previous video, I mentioned an Elysia species, Elysia timida. This cool slug has the ability to store the chloroplast that it eats from algae inside of its body. Then the chloroplast photosynthesize for the slug instead. Many scientists believe that the genes to be able to hold any sort of photosynthesis came from plants through horizontal gene transfer. This is a grub basket. According to the PDA, it's possible that it's a carnivorous plant. It seems to function like Sarracenia or Nepenthes do. These are both types of carnivores that use pitcher-like traps with some sort of acid to digest the insect. I believe that the reason this plant is a carnivore is because it has a weak root system. Carnivores on Earth need to eat insects in order to obtain nutrients that their roots can't get from the soggy soil. If the grub basket has roots that are unable to pick up the nutrients, or the soil is lacking them, then this could be why it's carnivorous. The lantern tree is a very important food source for Riley on 4546b. It produces orange and red fruits very quickly. The PDA tells us that it's actually a bunch of vines that grow together to make one tree. It kinda looks like a woven money tree. Papyra glabra, commonly sold as the money tree, is supposed to bring good fortune when it comes to your finances. They typically have 3 to 5 different trees that are braided together. Why do this though? Well, it looks pretty to humans, that's about it. There's no reason outside of aesthetics to do this. So why does the lantern tree do it? Well, the PDA tells us it's for structural integrity, so we'll go with that. Marble melons are very similar to earth melons. Both have a high water content, but the marble melon has some distinct characteristics. First of all, the fruits are orange and red, and it has palm-like leaves coming from the top. The PDA tells us that the plant pulls water from the air rather than the roots. Well, this could explain the larger leaves. All land plants have something called stomata, which are tiny holes on the underside of the leaves. When the plant breathes, the stomata open. They inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. The marble melons could have special stomata for pulling in water. Then it can filter down to the fruits. On a planet that's almost entirely ocean, I imagine it's pretty humid there. Mink plants are described as very hardy, with a thick trunk that protects the roots from being eaten. It's said to self-repair over long periods of time. Well, plants are pretty good at healing, just like animals. When injured, their cells stretch out and multiply rapidly to try to close the wound. This can leave scars though, so these crack-like patterns on the plant are pretty typical of one that gets damaged often. Speckled rattlers are pretty fun. When shaken, the spore head rattles as the spores bounce around. On Earth, we have a plant called a crotalaria, or rattle pods. It acts exactly as the name suggests. The seed pods rattle when the seeds are mature. Voxel shrubs remind me of double-petaled oriental lilies. They have the same leaf shape and the same general flower shape. I just wish our lilies glowed in the dark too. Spiked grass is one that confuses me. It has such a strange growing pattern. It has a horn-like structure to protect the roots. I want to believe that this horn is actually a piece of coral that has a symbiotic relationship with the plant portion. But that's just my opinion. Bloodroots and bloodvines are a strange species of non-photosynthetic plant. You can tell this by one key feature. It's white growth. When plants are grown without lights, they take a white or yellow appearance. This is due to the fact that the plant hasn't developed any chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are the photosynthesis centers for the plant. Normally, this means the plant will die, as it's unable to get the energy it needs to survive. Photosynthesis is the process of taking carbon dioxide and water and converting it into sugars and oxygen. It needs sunlight to do this in normal circumstances. I am proposing that these plants are actually parasitic. They can receive the minerals from the rocks they attach to, but they must be getting their sugars from somewhere else. I have a proposition. What if the plant is actually parasitizing plants closer to the surface by use of fungi? There's a beautiful relationship between fungi and plants that I plan on doing a special video about. Basically, the mycorrhizal network, the fungus, connects to plants closer to the surface. We know there are fungi here due to the acid mushrooms. Anyway, that network of mycelium connects to other plants, like the bloodvines. Now this is just a theory, even in the real world, but it could be possible that the plants are sharing nutrients with each other through the use of mycorrhizal networks. This means that the surface plants are the ones actually doing the photosynthesizing, while the bloodvine gets all the benefits. This is a perfect example of the theory known as the wood wide web. Gabe's feather appears to be another plant that doesn't photosynthesize in the depths of 4546b. Instead, the PDA tells us it relies on the excretions of fauna around it. To get its sugars, I believe it could be another parasite on the wood wide web. After all, it's found growing next to the bloodroots. Brine lilies are plants that have a strange adaptation. They grow in the brine pools of the Lost River. Now, this isn't going to be a plant fact, but more so an ocean fact. Brine pools like this are found in our oceans too. They're a body of water that has increased salinity compared to the water above. They also have a lot of hydrogen sulfide and methane, making them completely inhospitable for organisms in the deep ocean. The fact that this plant survives this means it must have a need for high salt concentrations, which is very fascinating. Another plant that has the same relationship to the brine pools is the crabclaw kelp. So, how are these plants getting energy if they can't photosynthesize? Well, it could be that they're parasitic again, but I think a more likely explanation is that the plants have evolved to conduct chemosynthesis. Basically, this is the process where organisms, usually bacteria or giant tube worms, fix carbon dioxide and produce sugars, with sulfur being the waste product. Well now, isn't it convenient that the brine pools are full of hydrogen sulfide, a thing that's required for chemosynthesis? Ghostweed has tendrils that wrap around it. I believe these to actually be parasitic to the green portion of the plant, just because there's such a large difference between the two of them. But how is the ghostweed itself getting nutrients? Well, I believe it's also practicing chemosynthesis. It grows next to the Lost River. Those salts and minerals leach into the surrounding soils, and it could be using them for energy. Gel sacs remind me of another algae species. The purple sacs on them are full of a gel with spores. This reminds me of pneumatocysts on brown algae. Pneumatocysts are those air-filled sacs that are found at the base of the blades. These make the blades float, allowing them to get more sunlight. The gel sacs could have evolved to be full of gel instead to spread the spores more accurately than just letting them float away. Alright, on to the next... Wait a minute. Hold on. Are you okay? Do you need help? Do you require assistance? Oh, no, you're fine? Okay, bye then. Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. This tree right here is the giant cove tree. It's the only one in existence as far as we can tell. Judging by the roots in the trunk, it appears to be many smaller trees growing together as one, like the bulb bushes. It appears to have a symbiotic relationship with both the ghost rays and the ghost leviathan. The leviathan lays its eggs in the tree where they continue to mature. The ghost rays surround the tree, perhaps protecting the eggs. It's hard to say, but it's one of the most beautiful spots in the game. There we go. Did everyone get at least one mention? Let me check the Subnautica wiki real quick. Yeah, that's pretty much everyone. I left out a few that I didn't really have enough information to go on, or that I just didn't have too much to say about, but I believe almost everyone got at least one mention. I hope you enjoyed this little expedition into planet 4546b. It was fun while it lasted, but I have to get home now on my fancy rocket ships that I built out of rocks and fish guts. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Also be sure to leave a comment giving me game recommendations or topic ideas. I have a bit of a list going, but I'm always welcome to suggestions. That, and I just like hearing from you guys. And don't forget to check me out on Twitch as well. Remember, I stream Wednesdays and Saturdays from 6 to 9 p.m. Central Time. Thanks for watching!